When for the first time in the Dharmasthala Hoax, the anti-temple plot, we have now accessed a petition of the masked man that was filed in the Supreme Court in the story of Dharmasthala. The Dharmasthala plot, there was a plot to target. Look at that. That's a picture that we have accessed from Republic Kannada. This skull, they used this skull to file a petition in the Supreme Court and claim that there were mass rapes, mass murders in Dharmasthala. And we have now accessed the entire petition, ladies and gentlemen. We've accessed the petition. It was a criminal writ petition filed by the masked man in the Supreme Court, which the Supreme Court also saw through and had dismissed in May this year. In fact, in their petition, they had put up pictures, and later, the skull that was submitted in the Supreme Court in the Dharmasthala story, it appeared that it was not even a skull of the woman, of a woman. Rather, it was a skull of a man as shown in different tests. But what is emerging is that they had a bigger plot. The strategy may have been to create shock and awe by going straight to the Supreme Court, bypass the police, bypass the court, go straight to the Supreme Court, create a narrative that there was something wrong in a temple town called Dharmasthala. Their aim was to tarnish the temple town. In fact, they had asked for the Supreme Court urgent intervention. They claimed it's one of the most disturbing cases of systematic human rights violations in India's recent history. That's how they played it up. They played it up saying the petitioner was a former sanitation worker. They lied about the facts, and they claimed that he was coerced. He participated in disposal of hundreds of human bodies for almost 2 decades. And they lied, and they took this skull, took pictures, and then they showed it to the Supreme Court in May this year. And then they also tried to target Dr. Virendra Hegde, who's also the head of the Dharmasthala temple, and said that he, along with his family members, exercised absolute authority over the region, operating with apparent impunity, corrupting local law enforcement. These are the words of this particular gang, the anti-temple gang that went to the Supreme Court. They presented this petition claiming there was evidence of an organized criminal enterprise operating within the guise of a religious institution, where vulnerable individuals, predominantly women and other persons, were subject to extreme violence, sexual abuse and murder. And they lied. They targeted the temple. In fact, the words of the petition here say that they targeted the temple. The petition here says that there was a criminal enterprise operating within the religious institution, namely Dharmasthala, and all of that has now fallen apart. For the first time, what you're seeing on screen is the picture of the skull that was submitted in the Supreme Court. And this was such an attempt, ladies and gentlemen. You see what has happened in the last few months. There was a masked man who came out of nowhere, and then his story was picked up. We'll also show you the pictures of the masked man in Dharmasthala, who claimed there were murders. He claimed hundreds of women were raped. He claimed there were hundreds of murders. And he claimed that he had buried the bodies. He was forced to bury the bodies. And it is such a well-thought, well-oiled conspiracy that it now appears they went straight to the Supreme Court. And after the Supreme Court saw through this petition, they tried to pressurize the Congress government, which was sympathetic to this anti-temple brigade, because the Congress party found takers, because they were okay with the temple being targeted. They gave their permission for an investigation. And on the left, you see the masked man who is now arrested, and his entire plot has unraveled. And in fact, in front of the Supreme Court, they had falsified the facts that this man was a sanitation worker and that he was forced to leave Dharmasthala and that he had buried many women. And it now turns out that none of that happened. He was not even in Andhra Pradesh as claimed by these anti-temple brigade. He was in fact in Tamil Nadu. He was living in Tamil Nadu. We've tracked down, at Republic Kannada, we've tracked down his family. And for the first time, we have accessed the entire petition. We have also accessed the details of the petition. The petition had asked the Supreme Court, in fact, they wanted the Supreme Court to order a writ or an order directing the constitution of an SIT headed by a retired justice of the Honorable Court and comprising senior officers from CBI, NIA, forensic experts, etc. And they claimed there was a systematic pattern of crimes alleged to have occurred at 26 Dharmasthala Temple Town between 1995 and 2014. They claimed there were homicides. They claimed there were sexual assault cases. They claimed there was clandestine disposal of human remains. This was a skull. It turned out much later that the skull didn't even belong to a woman. They had lied. They had plotted. And what will be interesting is to see whether any political party was in cahoots with them in trying to defame a temple town, in trying to defame Hindus, in trying to defame the temple called Dharmasthala. In fact, they had also asked for the special investigation team to excavate, exhume operations at locations identified in different places. And they had also asked the Supreme Court to intervene and direct the SIT to investigate corruption and investigate the role of the temple. And they had tried to directly target the temple, and the Supreme Court saw through it. The Supreme Court had asked, Supreme Court in fact called it a paisa interest litigation. Supreme Court called it political interest litigation. And that's how the petition was dismissed. But what it shows is that there was an attempt. In fact, we had also accessed a picture which showed one of the gang members of this Skull Gang. Skull Gang tried to go to the Supreme Court. They took pictures, they took selfies. We had a picture, one such picture that also was accessed. In fact, let's get in some reactions now. We have Dr. Narendra Rangappa joining us on the phone line of the BJP. Mr. Rangappa, what this shows is that there was an attempt to go to the Supreme Court and pretend like there were hundreds of rapes and murders and create the shock and awe impact. To go to the Supreme Court, create headlines, say that this is the biggest ever criminal case in the history of India, right? But somehow, thank God, the court saw through it.
Yes, this has vindicated the stand taken by the BJP that these fellows' intentions are malicious. It is very obvious that they have suppressed the fact that there has been a PIL in the Supreme Court and the PIL has been dismissed. Despite this, the gang of this particular activity where Mr. Timarodi, Jayant, then Mr. Chinnaya and all the others have, along with the leftist thinking people in Karnataka, have hoodwinked the government and they have made them constitute an SIT. So, this has been clear now that there is some vested interests that have been after Dharmasthala to defame Dharmasthala and hurt the sentiments of lakhs of devotees and Hindus.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Rangappa, for speaking to Republic TV. Now, this is the skull. In fact, what is interesting here is that the picture of the skull was attached to the writ petition and then submitted in the court. It was attached in the Supreme Court writ petition. These pictures were shown as that of a woman. And that is how sinister this entire plot was, ladies and gentlemen, as we have accessed here on Republic TV all the details, and we are breaking down all the details, and we've exposed this gang that wanted to. In fact, what is interesting is that there are some channels in Lutyens, Delhi, called the masked man. This fraud who was arrested on the left of your screens, who you see was arrested by the police much later after Republic Kannada busted the plot and exposed him. And he was arrested after it was exposed by Republic that he was a complete fraud and that he was trying to pull off one of the biggest ever conspiracies. And this masked man was given a platform by Lutyens media channels When the plot was exposed, he was called by Lutyens media channels and then given a platform of 15 to 20 minutes to spin the story, to target Dharmasthala, to defame a temple town. It was one of the biggest ever anti-Hindu conspiracies that was thankfully foiled by the media. And this is how the Supreme Court questioned them. Supreme Court said, while dismissing the petition, that it besmirches its noble object. It is not a public interest litigation in the true sense, but one which can also be termed as publicity interest litigation, paisa interest litigation, private interest litigation, or political interest litigation. That is how strongly the Supreme Court had dismissed this entire petition. But ladies and gentlemen, this story not being, you will not see any Lutyens media channel reporting it. That's, look, there you see, that's one of the members of the, those are pictures that they had taken selfies and they were celebrating. In fact, these are pictures that the gang, the Maoist Brigade, the anti-temple gang took in front of the Supreme Court. Look at that picture. They took this picture in front of the Supreme Court. We'll stick to that picture if you can go back to the picture. Yeah, let's go back to that picture. In front of the Supreme Court, they took a picture and they were circulating it. They were sensing victory. They were sensing victory of almost bringing down a temple town. That was their aim. Their aim was to somehow target, besmirch, tarnish the image of Hindus, claiming that those behind the Dharmasthala temple were carrying out mass rapes, mass murders, and they almost got away with it, ladies and gentlemen. And that is why what we are showing you today is extremely critical. Many times such conspiracies go unreported, but for the first time we have not just accessed the petition, we have also accessed the pictures. In fact, what we will also do is we will try and get this lawyer called Dhananjay. This lawyer called Dhananjay, KV Dhananjay, was contacted by this gang and he helped them go to the Supreme Court. Ashok Gowda is on the phone line. He's a BJP leader in Karnataka. Ashok Gowda, it is shocking that they went to such an extent and they almost got away, if not for the Supreme Court stepping in and calling out their attempt by calling it a paisa interest litigation, publicity interest litigation, political interest litigation. Supreme Court saw through it, but sadly the Karnataka government gave them a platform. They gave them exactly what they wanted. It is such a shame.
Absolutely, yes. See, point number one is they do not want justice for Saujanya. They just wanted to defame Dharmasthala temple premises and as well as the Dharmadhikari in Dharmasthala. And when that was the intention, Karnataka state government gave them a platform in such way that it can be defamed. Fortunately, for the God's grace, it went in such way that they could not found any kind of a skull even when they dug the bodies. So meaning to say that there was no crime which happened there. And all this was a false narrative and a false cases which were given. And when such cases were given, nullification happened by the state government and state government itself is responsible for this. And when, if at all they had some kind of a skull anywhere, they could have at least found, because this masked man was saying that I have a photogenic memory, and KV Dhananjay in one of the private channels he came and said that yeah, there is a lot of things which has happened and we should definitely look into the cases. And many people believed it because there was a video about Dharmasthala, and then there was a totally planned conspiracy. And so Karnataka, not just India, and in the entire world, this had become a news. They just wanted to nullify. See, one main thing what I wanted to say is when Al Jazeera, BBC, and other channels covered it, the first part they covered it when the excavation was happening of the bodies. Now, once the report came in such way that there are no bodies found, no skull were found, then why did the Al Jazeera and BBC have not covered it? So this is all a planned strategy by the anti-India Brigade who want to nullify the Hindu community and Sanatana Dharma.
Yeah, absolutely. But are they in any mood? I mean, the Supreme Court, of course, had to step in and they saw through this attempt. What stopped the state government? Why do you think the state government is still entertaining them? Do you think that's because they are also, the state government run by the Congress has an interest in attacking, defaming the temple?
when Siddaramaiah was in government in the last time, 2013 to 2018, 2016, he wanted to take over at least around 12 matas and 20 temples. And he was not successful because a lot of people moved to the court and said we cannot take over the temples and matas to the endowment board. And now he is trying that one of the biggest temples in Karnataka is the Dharmasthala. So wherein you please remember that the 2 lakh rupees is the 2 lakh crore is the income. That's what they state. We don't know what is the income of the temple or how a lot of charity goes. That's a different issue. But the statements given by the Timurodi and gang and even the leftists, even when they come under the TV channels, all the KPCC spokesperson, KPCC one Mr. Dwarkanath, all these people have only one target. Even there is the people who the one lawyer, Balan, who fights for the terrorists and other people are PFI. He fights for the PFI cases. He was saying in one of the TV channels that 2 lakh crore is the income, and that versus Saujanya. When this is the statement made by Balan or Dwarkanath or KPCC spokespersons, and as well as Siddaramaiah's target, Siddaramaiah's intention in the past and now. So this is clear that when Congress is there, when Siddaramaiah...
Ashok, I have your colleague also. Arvind Bellad is joining us on the phone line. Arvind Bellad is a BJP leader, also the deputy leader for the BJP in the assembly. Mr. Bellad, I have accessed the petition. Republic Kannada has the full details, and it shows, they took pictures of the skull. Now the irony is, they brought a skull to Delhi to show to the Supreme Court. Now the SIT sources have told us after examining the skull that the skull did not even belong to a woman. The skull belonged to a man. I mean, to what level was this very dangerous plot going?
Yeah, absolutely. See, these guys are nothing but leftist crooks. They want to defame every Hindu temple, Sanatana belief. They want to ensure people lose belief in good temples and good dharmadikaris and matadipatis. So this is the whole purpose of this gang. So that's see the audacity of them taking a skull which is of some man to Supreme Court. I think Supreme Court should very seriously take up this case and ensure that they are put behind the bar.
Yeah.
Instead of just warning.
Yeah. But the irony is the state government is still entertaining them, right? The state government is keeping the case alive, right? They're trying to look for a way out, for a face saver somewhere. But I don't know whether they'll get the face saver. But they don't seem to be in the mood to shut this, at least now.
No, their idea is to keep the case open and ensure that the people continue to doubt the intentions of the Dharmasthala and the Dharmadikaris. So unless until the case is closed, so people will not get a verdict. So these people purposely are keeping the case alive.
Yeah, okay.
Siddaramaiah and gang. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking to Republic. We'll take a short break. That's the first time that the pictures have come out, ladies and gentlemen. Think about it. 2 months back, when the story broke, the likes of Al Jazeera, BBC, and the usual suspects who target India, who target the Hindu community, who target temples, their headlines said that mass rapes, mass burials, mass murders in a temple town. And now as we are reporting it right now, you have pictures of how this gang who wanted to tarnish Hindus went to Supreme Court. Their plot is not just exposed, but the key members of this gang are arrested. They're in police custody, and yet not one of them has taken that article down or video down or updated the story by saying that the same people who made the allegation have now been arrested. It is such an irony, and the Lutyens media that gave the masked man the platform has gone silent. They won't even report the story.